Welcome everyone to the PJ's Cast. I'm your host Pierce, alongside of my good pal Dylan. So, trade deadline has come and gone. Thank you to everyone that tuned into our stream, our annual trade deadline stream. We had a lot of fun doing it. Thank you for Vegas for saving it because goddamn, it was kind of getting boring there. But then we got the bombshell that Vegas was trading for Thomas Hurdle. But more on that later. There's some other stuff happening in the sports world. I want to hear your thoughts on what's been happening with the NFL free agency. Again, I don't know much about the NFL, so I just want to hear you go on about things because I've seen like Kirk Cousins signs with the Falcons, and then Barkley signed with the Eagles. Like a lot of big moves are happening. So, what's your thoughts on NFL free agency so far? I'm pretty sure the Bears made a move too, didn't they?
Yeah. It's been an interesting free agency class. A lot of guys are getting paid very valuable money, and I there's been like a lot of these. Some of these moves have been like rumored for a couple of days. Like Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta has been a big rumor, and everyone was like, "Oh, when Kirk Cousins hit free agency last time 6 years ago, he signed immediately," and he did. You also have the guard market, which is completely like offensive line are getting paid out. It's not just tackles anymore getting paid. Interior offensive line is getting paid extremely well. Stevie's hunting something in the background.
Yeah, she probably sees like a critter outside or something. A no good flea-bitten varmint. He's watching the premises. Yeah,
but yeah, it's been a big market for that. It's been a big market for just extensions in general, because a lot of these teams are cap strapped, so they're going and extending players so they can have a lower cap hit this year so they can be compliant. Like Deion Dawkins just did that today for the Bills, I think. He's like now going to be the third highest paid left tackle, which is kind of crazy, but that's the way the market works now. Like Christian Wilkins, I think, got 4 years, 110. And I love Christian Wilkins as a player, but not at 110. No, don't. That's a lot of money for a guy whose career high is 9 sacks. Like,
sounds like the players are getting paid though.
Oh, it's good for the players, especially the running back market. Like the running backs are getting paid, which has not been a trend the last, 4 or 5 years. Like Saquon got big money going to Philly. DeAndre Swift got a 3-year deal with the Bears. You have Josh Jacobs got a 4-year deal with the Packers. Tony Pollard got a 3-year deal. Like this is stuff that wasn't happening even last year for running backs, and it's happening this year. And I think it just speaks to how valuable these running backs are on the market right now. And I really think that, I think Saquon's going to take Philly's offense to a whole new level. They haven't had a dynamo like that in the backfield. Josh Jacobs in Green Bay is an interesting one. I don't know what to think of that one yet. It could work. It could not. I wouldn't have given him 4 years. That's just me. But Bears signing Swift is fine. I'm not going to say it's good signing. I'm not going to say it's bad signing. We'll see how he plays. We'll see if his production is based on the offensive line of the Eagles or if it's based on his play. And Tony Pollard Tennessee's been the interesting team today because they got a new center who's now like the third highest paid center, Lloyd Cushenberry. I don't know how to say his last name, but he's center. And then they picked up a corner in Chidobe Awuzie, and then they picked up Tony Pollard as a running back. They're really starting to fill out their roster, and it's something that team needed because they went very bare bones last year. And then you just look at all these extensions that are coming in. It has affected the market. Like the Bucs brought back everyone, and that changed the market. The Falcons going to get Kirk Cousins changed the market just for the quarterback market in general. The Raiders gave Gardner Minshew $15 million. Like, this is the way the market's working. Hey, Austin Eckler just going to the Commanders. That just broke. Like, it's a running back market this year. Also, I feel bad for Austin Eckler because this was like 2 years ago. He probably would have had a 5-year deal, but he has a 2-year deal now. But that's how it works with running backs. It's those hard miles. So, I don't know. There's a lot of good signings on there. There's a couple questionable ones. I think the most surprising of the day was Robert Hunt, the guard that was formerly for the Dolphins, got paid $100 million by the Panthers, which is good for them because they need that protection for Bryce Young, but also that's a lot of money for a guard, and I've never seen that much money thrown for a guard, at least in recent memory, from what I can remember. Like Zach Martin didn't even make that in his prime. So it's a crazy. It's a buyer's and it's a player's market. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think another big surprise is Danielle Hunter hasn't been signed yet. Like, I get he's 30 years old, but this guy had 16 and a half sacks last year. The rumor is that the Bears are trying to sign him. I'd love that signing if they could get that done. Also, another thing that just describes this free agency class is Justin Jones, who's a former D tackle for the Bears that I don't think is the best player in the world. Like, he's okay. He got $30 million today. So, like, that's the kind of market that it is right now. So it's been an interesting free agency so far, to say the least.
So did it just start today? Because I feel like there's a huge flood of free agent signing, or is it like there's no set day for it? They can just sign whenever.
The way it works is the legal tampering period starts today, and then everyone can legally sign Wednesday. But
okay,
they've been tampering since last week. Like, this is basically since the combine is when they start hashing out contracts. They just can't say they are. They won't. They'll say like for the camera that they're not doing that, but I guarantee you, everyone's been hashing these deals out for over a week now, at least.
Oh yeah. And the draft is in a month, right? It's in April, right?
End of April. It's always the end of April.
Okay.
It's always good because I think it's in Detroit this year, which will be interesting. And there's still a lot of moves to be made. Not to make it about the Bears, but like with the way the quarterback market's shaped up, I really don't know where Justin Fields is going to end up. Like,
I saw people saying Atlanta would always say they went for Kirk Cousins. So,
Atlanta, the two places I would have penciled in were Atlanta and Pittsburgh, and they both went different routes at quarterback. Russell Wilson.
Didn't they re-sign Russell Wilson? The Steelers, yeah.
And then the Raiders went a different route at quarterback. The only team, in my head right now, there's probably 4 teams where Fields can go, and only one of them he'd probably be the starter. So that one hurts him because he's not going to get he'll have to compete for a job. And then 2, the Bears aren't going to get as good of capital because of that, in my opinion. So the places I think he could end up are probably New England if they don't want to go quarterback with the top 3 pick. I think that makes a lot of sense because he can start there. Then the next 3 teams, I think it's just like you trade for him, and if your quarterback sucks, you put him in, and that's Seattle. You have the Saints, I think, could be in that list as well. And then one dark horse team, but I don't think they'd trade him in the division. Like, the Vikings could obviously make a call, but I don't see the Bears trading Justin Fields in the division. Who knows? Maybe they offer 2 seconds or something. Can't really pass that. So it's going to be interesting for sure, but I think the Bears playing the long game with Fields is going to hurt them in the long run because I've been saying it for months, you got to rip that Band-Aid off, and they're waiting till the end of March, I think, to rip that Band-Aid off, and every team's quarterback situation will probably be set by then. So they're playing with fire right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like I've asked you probably a couple of times, like, what the temperature in Chicago is with Justin Fields, because I follow a lot of Chicago sports fans because of being like Blackhawks fans, and I see, people happy, oh, they're not going to trade Fields, and then I see people upset. So it just feels like there's such a divide with what they want to do with Justin Fields. I mean, at least you're not a Dallas Cowboys fan because Boomer is losing it right now. There's this tweet. All 3 of the Cowboys division rivals made efforts to significantly get better in the opening window of free agency. Dallas did not. To which Connor sent to the chat, I'm killing both of them myself.
For sure.
Shout out to our good friend Connor, aka Boomer. But it's sorry, you go.
But no, I was gonna say, like, I don't remember ever, like, I don't think there's ever been this divisive of a player in Chicago, at least for this offseason. Because there are people who are so far on the side of, like, I don't know how you trade this guy, whatever. And then there's so many people that are so far on the other side of, like, he's a bum, he needs to leave the team, they need to move on. And then there's like I can't even say it's a big group. It's probably like a very small group in the middle that are just neutral on it. And I feel like that's where I fall most of the time. Slowly leaning towards the Caleb side, but I'm not calling Fields a bum. I just think it's like I can say all these good things about him, but also say that he hasn't thrown for 3,000 yards yet in a season. In a league where a passing offense is needed to succeed. Not only needed, but seems to be easy to come by in today's league with the way offenses are set up and the way you can attack the middle of the field nowadays. But it's a whole other thing. Let's just put it this way. For all the people who think Justin Fields is the best there is, the NFL sure doesn't seem to think that, which is unfortunate. But also, those are the guys that get paid way more money than us to analyze teams. Do with that what you will. I love Fields. I just don't want him and Williams in the same locker room. They need to pick one side.
Mm-hmm.
Like I told this to Ben over the weekend, you can't have two alphas in the locker room. And
unless it's the PJ cast, then we can make that work.
Yeah, then you can have 3 or 4, but still. Yeah, I don't know. They're running out of time, or at least running out of landing spots to where they can get a good return.
Yeah, it's like a shit or get off the pot situation. Like if you're going with Fields, like give him the support, give him the help. But if you're going to trade him now and then make Caleb Williams your next guy, I guess.
And they're waiting till Caleb Williams beats them at the end of the month, honestly. I really think that's what it is. Still think they're going to go Caleb at the end of the day, whether that means they trade Fields for like a 4th, but like I think that's what's going to happen.
Well, you can turn that 4th into a guy that's NFL ready, right? Or like be in your lineup, being an impact
It's
player,
the only league where you can
works.
get you can. It's the only league where you can get a freaking star that will help you next year, in like the 5th round. Like, for God's sakes, Eddie Jackson was like star safety on the Bears for 8 years or something, and they drafted him in the 4th round. Like, it's very possible. It just comes down to who you pick. There's just going to be a group of people that think like, oh, we should get if you don't get a 1st for him, don't trade him. And it's like, well, hate to break it to you, he's hitting 1st. Like if he was, this would have happened already, in my opinion. But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, I don't know how much longer you want to spend on football because I have a perfect way to segue this to our next topic. Yeah. Speaking of Chicago teams and waiting for the draft, offense, yada yada, things of that nature. The Blackhawks, for the first time this season, scored 6 goals, more than 6 goals. They scored 7, and by virtue, for the first time this season, won a game, allowing more. I think 4 more goals. They won 7-4 last night against the Arizona Coyotes. It's probably the most entertaining game we've watched all year, besides maybe the Leafs Blackhawks game back in November at Thanksgiving, which also had another player score a hat trick in it. Yeah, I watched the game full and full. I mean, I had nothing to do really on Sunday night. You know what? I was like, you know what? They beat the Coyotes last week. Let's see what they can do this week on home ice. See if they can maybe get another win. Maybe they can reach 20 wins like we said. Well, at least like I said they would. Maybe they can hit those 20 wins. And it starts now. Watch the game. 2 early goals by Clayton Keller. And I'm just thinking, oh, here we go again. And then and they responded very well in the second period. Like I think they gave up that Clayton Keller goal was only 11 seconds in the second period. And you're thinking, oh Christ, here we go again. It's like a repeat of November when they were won like 8-1. But they responded right back. Connor Bedard scored a goal, and then Colin Blackwell went to work. Connor Bedard got another one, and then all of a sudden they have the lead. And Arizona, they tied it, made it 3-3, and then Tyler Johnson on like their power play, like they don't have much talent, but I've noticed their power play, they're just taking more shots, which is what they need to do. Just get pucks on net. You never know what happens, and their power play has pretty much carried them through those couple of games against the Coyotes. And yeah, it was an offensive outburst in the second period I was not expecting the team to see because we just haven't seen it from this team this season because they don't have the personnel to do it. But Connor Bedard can do it, and apparently Colin Blackwell can as well. 5-3 early on in the third period. Nick Schmaltz made a 1-goal game, but then Ryan Donato made 6-4, and then Colin Blackwell put it away in the empty netter for his first career NHL hat trick. And we'll talk more about the deadline. Obviously, the Blackhawks didn't do anything besides getting back the 5th round pick. They traded for Anthony Beauvillier. Too much words, too much talking. I read this article by Ben Pope he put out saying that Colin Blackwell was like, yeah, I'm probably gonna get traded. I've accepted that, but my wife is pregnant, and I just want to stay in Chicago. I love it so much, and it's not seeing him get traded. It was nice to see that. It's like at least let him have the rest of the year to be in Chicago, even if he doesn't resign. I think they should resign him, but yeah, seeing him get the hat trick that was just so awesome to see. I mean, it would have been nice to see Connor Bedard get one. He will get one day. He almost had one. There was there was they killed off a penalty. It was 6-4. Arvid Soderblom made a huge save off Clayton Keller, denied him from the hat trick, and then like right after, as the penalty ended, Blackwell was on the penalty kill. Bedard coming out of the penalty box, 2-on-1. Blackwell passed it to Bedard, and it just like the puck just was like I don't know what the right word, but like he couldn't settle, and he just missed the net, and he was that close to get a hat trick. One day we might see, we will see a Connor Bedard hat trick, but it was nice seeing the other CB get a hat trick with Colin Blackwell. And kind of to wrap up Colin Blackwell, I remember last year when Luke Shen was being traded from the Canucks. I remember he couldn't like go to Toronto or play games because his wife gave birth the day of, or like day before or day after he got traded. So I don't know where his wife is at the stage of pregnancy, but it must be nice knowing, oh, okay, at least we have like the rest of the spring and even summer just to kind of relax in Chicago and do what you need to do. But yeah, overall, good vibes win. It's always nice to see offense. I mean, this team doesn't have the personnel to have these kind of offensive outbursts, so it's always when we do see this, it's always a good sight. We're not going to get much of them. Um, yeah, I don't know if you watched the game, but that's all I got. It was just a good vibes win.
Yeah, I watched the game. But wish they could play the Coyotes more often. Holy crap. Their defense is worse than ours.
Yeah. Yeah, they got to Connor Ingram, who's been very good this year. And by the way, if Arvid Soderblom only played against Leafs and Coyotes, he'd be the best goaltender of all time.
Goddamn right he would be. Don't talk about that 8 spot he let up on the Coyotes earlier this year.
Yeah, no kidding.
But, yeah, I mean, the Hawks needed this outburst offensively, especially after that Washington game where just like second half of the back-to-back to put up that kind of effort, I think shows a lot about this team. Shows that they still care, even in a season where nothing has gone their way.
Yeah, exactly.
The power plays that continued to click. Seth Jones had a 4-assist game, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, 2 goals in the win when they broke the road losing streak, which was I think 22 games. And I think it was like the 4th longest road losing streak in NHL history. Like it was getting up there, and I don't know if it's talked about enough, but yeah, it was pretty bad. It was nice to see them finally break that.
I agree.
And then get another one against the Coyotes.
Yeah, for sure. Like they needed a couple wins. Like let's just put it that way.
Absolutely.
Bedard cooking as usual. Like I think he had 14 scoring chances in the last 2 games.
Yeah, against the Capitals, he had like 16 shot attempts. None of them went in. Like he's been piling up the assists. He's making stuff happen, but he hasn't been able to put the puck. He's been doing everything but put the puck in the net. And finally, things regressed back to the mean where he did score 2 goals, and one of them he kind of just flung it on net and went in. That's just how hockey goes. But yeah, it's. I mean, you don't love seeing Connor Bedard like getting upset all the time, but also I'd rather him like smack his like stick over the boards a couple times, every few games, rather than not show any emotion. It shows that he expects so much of himself and he wants to put those pucks in. But yeah, it's nice to see that when we're not only is Connor Bedard creating a lot, he's got a couple goals, he also had an assist. But seeing someone like Colin Blackwell get 3 goals and Seth Jones 4 assists, I mean. We talk about it all the time. Like I think Blackhawks fans as a whole are rough on Seth Jones. Sometimes that's deserved. I think a good portion of the time it isn't. But yeah, it's just nice to see him get some assists there. Again, just an overall good vibes win. And then they play the Ducks on Tuesday, so they have what you would call a little bit of an easier patch coming up. They do play the Kings on Friday, but yeah, and then they play the Sharks on Sunday. So. And which we're going to get into later. They are so there is a 10-point gap between the Sharks and the Blackhawks between the 30th place team Anaheim Ducks. Anaheim Ducks have 49 points. The Sharks and Blackhawks have 39 points each, but the Sharks have 2 games in hand. Though the Sharks offloaded a bunch of players at the trade deadline, they're going to get worse. They're where the Blackhawks were last year, where they have unloaded players at the deadline. They've done pretty much all the selling that they could, and now they're going to get worse from here. At least they think they are, and I think they will. Whereas the Blackhawks have, they've just been ravaged with injuries all year, and have just kind of been at the bottom and want another top three. They're pretty much locked into a top four pick. So, um, that's really it for the game. Unless you have any more to talk about, can move on to our next bit of news. So, Landon Sligert's season ended with Notre Dame. He spent 4 years there, and now he signs his 2-year ELC. Pretty sure it was Michigan who beat them. So I don't know, had Michigan lost, like if it was the other way, that Frank Nazar might have signed right away. But yeah, it's nice to see some hope, even if Landon Sligert isn't on, top of the hierarchy of Blackhawks prospects. It's gonna be nice to get some young players in there and see what he can do, because he is a draft pick of the previous regime, but the way he plays, like, he's gonna be a bottom six kind of guy. Energy, skates well, works his ass off, maybe plays on the penalty kill. It feels like he's gonna endear himself to Kyle Davidson and Luke Richardson. So I'm excited to see what he could bring.
100%.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if they let him. Well, it'll be interesting to see how many games he gets this year in the NHL, because I would think he gets like the last 15, but also like they're getting relatively healthy. So like, I don't think he'll play every game, but
no.
It'll be interesting to see how he does in the NHL. I'm more particularly curious of how he'll do in Rockford come playoff time, if the Rockford even makes the playoffs. But that's a whole other thing.
I don't know what the standings are, but it feels like they're making a push from what I've seen. Like, I remember they're starting to get bodies back. Lucas Reichel's doing all right in Rockford, and I don't know. I would have to double check if they have a shot at the playoffs.
But I don't know. This is the guy that I was hesitant was even going to sign going into the season, and he did. Mm-hmm. So credits and Davidson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, especially in the final year, because like the more and more you go on, you're getting to that final year. It's like, okay, well, I've gotten this far. Why would I want to go to the Blackhawks? Maybe I could go to a better team, but still, he wanted to be with the Blackhawks. So, the Rockford Ice Hogs are 25, 21, and 5. They have 2 games in hand on the on the Texas Stars. I don't know how their point system or playoff system works, but like it looks like they're in it. Maybe they could get third in their division. I don't know, but it'd be nice to see them at least make a push. Get all those young guys to play some meaningful games. So, yeah. We're gonna talk about the trade deadline, and that'll pretty much be it for the episode. But there is quite a bit to talk about. We did the podcast on Monday where I had Mitch and Jacob on. We kind of talked about what happened, and that was before all the big trades happened, before the deadline on Friday. And then you and I had our podcast last Thursday. I'm pretty sure the Thursday before that, saying what trades we would like to see for the trade deadline. And man, where do we even start? Because I put it in the notes. Who are our winners and losers for the trade deadline? Because we all know about Vegas. I want to start off with Vegas here, because it's everyone's getting mad, and I get it. Like, Vegas is a villain. Like, this shouldn't be happening. But again, we always say, don't blame the player, blame the game. This is the NHL's fault. This is the cap, like how they've set up the CBA, where the salary cap doesn't count in the playoffs. So, of course, if the Vegas Golden Knights, a team that wants to win the Stanley Cup every year, has 17 million or however much money they have in injury reserve money, like however much money they have, they're going to go and get these superstars. I would be more upset at my team for not making these moves, because it always, like, what Vegas has done this trade deadline, all it's done is help reaffirm that NHL teams only won the Stanley Cup because a team has to. It feels like Vegas is the only team that's trying out there, because from San Jose's end of things, like I think they were supposed to trade Barabanov to the Rangers, but since they had a third retention salary spot used up from the Hurdle trade, they didn't make that trade because they can retain salary cap, because 3 is the limit on what you can do. And it just feels like no team was calling up the Sharks, and it felt like Vegas, Kelly McCrimmon just called them up, was like, hey, so Thomas Hurdle, how can we make this work? Our first round pick from last year, David Edstrom, and like a sec or whatever the trade was, and they made that trade happen because the Sharks didn't get anything else, and they're like, oh, we can get a first round pick for Thomas Hertl, even though we got to retain money. We'll still do it because we get a first round pick and a decent prospect, and it feels like the same for Calgary, or I think it's different for Calgary, but Vegas is out there. They're wanting to make moves. I'm tired of the excuses that general managers can't get done because of the salary cap, because Vegas will literally turn over every stone to make it happen. They will put Mark Stone on injury reserve to make it happen. So I when the Blackhawks ever get to this point again, whether that's in 2030 or whatever, this is exactly what I want them to do. This is exactly what I want my sports team to do. Go all in every year, especially if you have a core that can win the Stanley Cup. And the Blackhawks did it when they're the pioneers of this. They did this in 2015. Talk about teams getting mad, but you can use it to your right. You go ahead.
I just want to butt in real quick as you mentioned it. I did.
Yeah.
I put a meme in the Sheet League chat after Vegas made the move for Hertl. I was just like the Blackhawks in 2015 after putting Kane on LTIR and trading for Vermette, and it's fucking it's fucking Cillian Murphy and Oppenheimer just looking off into the lake, fucking tweaking. Oh my god!
Oh, you mean Wokenheimer that won the Woke Academy Awards?
Y'all sent that, and I was like, "Who is he quoting?" And I was like, "Oh, it's Elon."
Yeah.
It's Rose's favorite person, of course.
Obviously, we won't talk about that. But an example: the Tampa Bay Lightning, when that happened, when they lost to the Blackhawks this year, they complained about it, but the NHL didn't do anything to fix it. So you know what they did? 2021, they knew their team was good enough. Yeah, they did it too. They put Kucherov on a long-term injury reserve. Doesn't count against the cap. They went out at the deadline, spent money, got Kucherov back for the playoffs, and they won their second straight Stanley Cup. And Vegas is doing that now. And it's funny because yes, Vegas is the biggest perpetrator of this, but it's perfectly legal. But there's teams with bigger salaries on the books, if you combine their actual salary. I think they're at 91 million, but there's teams like Colorado and Toronto that have more money on the books for that, but no one's getting mad at that. People are only getting mad because Vegas actually did something with that money. So I don't know. We could ramble on about that forever, but man, Vegas, that's exactly what I would want my sports team to do if I have a chance to win a championship every year. Just turn over every stone. First round picks don't matter unless you're like Brendan Brisson. Then we'll keep him.
Well, you want the best part about all this? Everyone bitches about Vegas going over the cap. They're not even the highest team over the cap this year.
Well, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
The Leafs are 15 mil over the cap, and it's all mid. Vegas goes 12 mil over the cap, and they make it to where, if I'm reading this correctly, Alec Martinez is their seventh defenseman come playoff time,
which is stupid.
and then hold on, they're gonna have one of freaking Brett Howden or Keegan Colasar is going to be their extra come playoff time. Their top nine is going to be disgusting. And that doesn't even take into account the steps Nick Waugh has taken as a player this year. The fact that Jonathan Marchessault is doing Jonathan Marchessault things where no one talks about it again. William Karlsson's still a good player. Jack Eichel doing Jack Eichel things. Their top four is gross now. It's
best in the NHL. Find me one that's better.
Pietrangelo, Theodore, and then you got Hannafin and Haig, and then it's McNabb and Whitecloud, and then your extras are Hutton and Martinez. Come on, man. And then your top three centers are Eichel, Hertl, and Karlsson. And honestly, I'm playing Hertl on the wing at that point because Waugh has been such a good center. They're gonna have so much roster flexibility come playoffs.
You can. That's the thing. I said this on the podcast we did. Did Vegas have to trade for Anthony Mantha? No, probably not. They would have been fine. Did they have to trade for Noah Hannafin? No, they probably would have been fine. Especially Thomas Hertl. I get adding two rentals with Mantha and Hannafin, but they're like, oh, we might extend Hannafin. Oh, and then we'll also go and get Thomas Hertl. They absolutely did not have to do that, but they did anyways. When Vegas got the memo, when Vegas entered the NHL, they did not get the memo of oh, you can't do anything. You gotta be conservative. You gotta be risk averse. They do not give a shit. I love it. I love that there is a villain in the NHL because if there weren't, it would be boring and there wouldn't be a villain.
And in theory, they have to go for it this year. People don't realize that. They're not keeping Marchessault, Watt, and Wait, hold on. They're not keeping Marshall, Stevenson, and
Who's Blackhawk, by the way?
Hannafin. Like they're not keeping all these players, and this doesn't even take into account Will Carrier, who's also on LTR. Like they're gonna have like legit NHL players sitting on the bench come playoff time, and that's good because next year they're not going to be able to have this whole team just because of the way the salary cap works. They'll find a way to make it work. I'm not. There's no.
They always do. That's the thing. Like like we're always complaining about, oh, it's so hard to make moves, and then it's so hard to get rid of these big contracts. But Vegas finds a way every year to do it. Like they unloaded Riley Smith after they won the Stanley Cup, like getting rid of Nate Schmidt for nothing, so they could sign Alex Pietrangelo. Like, oh man, it's ridiculous. Just looking at that team, they have probably 3 or 4 goalies they could use and be, most NHL teams, at least like a backup or a starting, definitely a starting goaltender. And then you look at their defense, like their first pairing, gross. They're probably going to keep playing. They're probably going to put Hannafin and Pietrangelo together, but McNabb and Theodore could be most teams' first pairing, but they're on the second pairing. And then you look at Haig and White Cloud, like that's their third pairing. That could be most teams' second pairing. Hell, that could be most teams' first pairing. That'd be fine. Like it's crazy. And then you mentioned the center core, Jack Eichel, William Karlsson, Thomas Hertl. Like you can move Hertl around on the wing if you want. Nick Waugh is perfectly fine at playing. Like they just, yeah, this is what I want my team to do. Like when the Blackhawks in the future, I hope they have that stacked team, but also have that positional versatility where you can put them anywhere. Like you can put them on the first line left wing, or you can put them fourth line center. You can put them on the power play. You can put them on the penalty kill. And Vegas just does all of that to a T.
Yeah. They're the way you want your team to be. Like I don't care what anyone says. So it's like if I'm rooting for a team, I want my team to do that every year. That means they give a shit and they want to win. That is more than I can say about over half of this league right now, which is pathetic.
That's almost this whole league.
Yeah.
Like everyone from like ownership down to the players wants to win a Stanley Cup, and that's what you want. Like you want an ownership that's hands off, but also wants to win, respects like the game of hockey, and is willing to give out the money to make, a championship winning team happen. Like I don't think Bill Foley cares that they fired Pete DeBoer and Gerard Gallant. They got Bruce Cassidy and they brought them a Stanley Cup. I don't think he cares about any of that as long as they won, and they did. So, and also the whole thing, like, and I get being mad about the situation, like with how they've handled the LTIR the past couple of years, but looking at things right now, Vegas is in the second wildcard spot. Now I fully expect them to make it, and they're going to be probably the toughest out. I mean, just having to play that team fully healthy, mostly healthy in the playoffs will be ridiculous. I think they'd rather have Mark Stone the play and their lineup helping them out. But again, with all that cap available, if you're not using it, then what's the point? They're going to use it. Yeah, they're in the second wild card spot, but also they have a game in hand on the Wild, and the Wild are 6 points behind. So I think they're safe, but it's not like they're first in the division and they're like, oh, we can just rest Mark Stone even though he's not injured, put him on LTR and just cruise to the playoffs. No, they still have to make up some ground here. So yeah, that's my whole rant spiel on Vegas. But to me, they're the big winner. There's other winners here, but I'd talk about a team making a statement, wanting to win back to back. Goddamn.
Yeah, and I mean, look no further for the next winner than the team they played in the Cup final. I think Florida made tremendous moves to compete this year. The fact that they got Tarasenko for 2/3 is highway robbery. I don't care if Tarasenko. I
think they were going to get it first, according to Sens fans.
I love Sens fans being awoken by reality every like month or so. It's always fun. But yeah, they picked him up. I'm missing who else they picked up. Then they make another move, or am I?
I think they did, but even if that was their only move, like Vladimir Tarasenko is a perfect pickup.
100%. And I think another team that came out on top is Winnipeg. Like Winnipeg got to Foley and Monahan for a first, a second, and a third. I think like that's robbery. Looking at it from any perspective you want to look at it, like that's great. I think
they got Colorado.
Oh yeah, Okposo, that's who it was. But I think Colorado came out gangbusters.
Yeah, Colorado too. Yeah.
Like holy smokes! Like they traded Bowen Byram for Casey Middlestat. Like I don't think people are talking about just the gravity of that trade.
From a pure hockey standpoint, like that's the biggest 1-for-1 hockey. Definitely this year. It feels like a couple of years. Yeah, like I can't think of the last one.
Yeah, like I go back to like Hall for Larson, but that's so long ago. Like there has to be one.
8 years ago, almost, yeah.
But
Sam Lafferty for Alex Nylander. Oh, I forgot about that one.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Holy. But I think those are like the clear winners for me at the deadline. Like there's obviously teams that I think did tidy business. I think Boston and Edmonton did some tidy business. You could argue that. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say Edmonton. I'm gonna kind of push back on that, but I it's so funny to me that the Bruins just got Pat Maroon. That's so funny.
They got Ancient Peak too. Oh, that was an underrated pickup.
Who apparently sucks on Columbus, but knowing Boston, they're gonna make him into like Brandon Carlo 2.0.
Oh yeah. Also, another winner is Carolina. They actually bought the ones they got Jake Gensel. They got Evgeny Kuznetsov, even if Kuznetsov's a bum. Like,
it's worth.
They're at least trying. They're trying, which is something more than you could say the last like 3 deadlines Carolina's done. So
yeah. Well, it feels like. Yeah, I was gonna say I agree with that, except for the Edmonton part. I'll get into that later. But with Carolina, it feels like they've gotten names at the deadline, but usually it's like guys with some term left. Like I think like Vincent Trocheck a couple years back. Same with Brady Shea, who's still on the team. And like they've gotten UFA guys, like they got Shane Gostisbehere last year, but they've never been the organization that's like, okay, let's spend assets on a superstar pending free agent who we know is not going to be back with our team next year, and Jake Gensel, and they did just that. And we've said, I feel like the Achilles heel of the Hurricanes the past few years in the playoffs is they can get to the Final Four, but they can't score. They haven't won a game in the Final Four, and who better to get than Jake Gensel, who's one of the best playoff goal scorers like ever, really. Like it's ridiculous. I think the last time that the Penguins were in the playoffs in 2022, he had like 7 or 8 goals in the 7-game series they played. So he knows how to perform. And the prospects they gave up, it didn't feel like they gave up any high-end prospects to get him, and they didn't even give up a guaranteed first-round pick. Like, yeah, I'm gonna put Pittsburgh in the losers as well, but
the fact that Pittsburgh couldn't get like Nikishin or whatever, however you say his name, or they couldn't get a guaranteed first. Scott Morrow. Yeah. Like Koivunen, I think is a good prospect, but like
doing well in Finland.
I don't know, and he's also Dubas isn't asking the right people to waive, even though like he didn't even think about it. Like that's a problem. I don't know, man. That's a bad look for them this year. I think another loser at the deadline is Toronto. Like, you couldn't trade your first and Fraser Minton to bolster your team in a division that.
We'll trade a 5th-round pick for Cade Weber, a guy who's barely can crack the ECHL and AHL. I mean, Joel Edmondson, whatever, but it feels like they didn't get that big forward to help. Like, you're telling me you couldn't have gotten Tyler Toffoli for what the Jets gave up for him? It's just, unacceptable. And I think the Leafs are geared for another early exit.
Yeah. They traded 4 draft picks, and I don't think they got a single player that moves the needle.
But you know what? Hey, at least their franchise player isn't on pace for 70 goals. Like, maybe it's just not like it's ridiculous.
They're so bad. Not bad. They're just mediocre. But it's
that's the worst thing you can be in sports. Yeah.
Because it's like, you know what? They're just above average. They're not great. They're just there.
They are. They really are. Like, they're not bad enough where it's like, oh, we got to make changes, but they're not good enough for like, oh, we're going to win the cup. They're just kind of there. Exactly.
Also, I may be in the minority on this one. I'm calling Calgary a loser.
I agree. I 100% agree with that. I don't trust what Craig Conroy is doing there.
Like, cool. You have 5 first-round picks the next 3 years. That looks good on paper. The first round, like the Canucks first round pick, they don't have their own first next year. This is a problem.
Nope.
Like, and if they stink next year, that pick is going to become. They're in a bad spot right now. They have a bunch of draft capital, which is nice, but I don't know, man. This should have been the deadline. You moved Markstrom, but you didn't want to retain. This should have been the deadline. You at least look at what Rasmus Andersson could have got you, because I'm sorry, Rasmus Andersson's not going to be on this team when you're really good. That's just how it is, unless you want a 32-year-old Rasmus Andersson on the team, which is fine. It's just, I don't know, man.
Everything's got to be on a table when you're in that position. And kind of wrap up the Penguins thing, I feel like the Penguins are right now where they were kind of like in 2021, 2022. with the Blackhawks, where they were doing everything to be like, okay, this is our last kick at the can with our franchise players, with the Blackhawks, Taves and Kane, and then now the Penguins. Obviously, it's Crosby and Malkin. We're gonna trade first. We're gonna trade futures to get Erik Karlsson, and that's what the Blackhawks did with Seth Jones. Albeit, I think the Blackhawks gave up more for Seth Jones, but you gave up your first round pick, and again, like Blackhawks trade is worse. Theirs was, I think, what, top 2 protected, and ended up going the way of Columbus. So at least Pittsburgh has top 10 protected, but they don't have their own first round pick, and I don't know what the exact stipulations or conditions are on that San Jose or the first that Pittsburgh gave San Jose. But if I'm Kyle Dubas, I'm almost like, man, I just give him that draft pick this year. If it's like number 9 or number 10, and just wait for next year and then do it to a full tear down. It's and it sucks to see because Crosby's having an amazing season, and you don't know what's going to happen. Crosby holds all the cards. He can do whatever he wants. If he wants to stay in Pittsburgh, complete full circle, be the Mario Lemieux there, where you take in the next guy, the next young superstar, have him live in your basement, and then pass it off to him. You can do that, or if he wants to go cup chasing, ring chasing, whatever, he can do that. But yeah, Pittsburgh, I think, is a big loser, and same with Calgary. Because I don't know, like they're mid. That's the best way you can put it.
Yep. I think that you put it better than I could have. They're just mid, and that's not a good spot you want to be in. You know what?
No.
Throw one more loser in there. This is another deadline where LA did not come away with the goaltender, and I know apparently they were trying to get Olmark, but dude, you got to make the move for a goalie eventually. Like, it's clearly holding your team back. Maybe you'll say it's offensive consistency. Whatever. A good goalie can change a lot of those problems. That's all I'm going to say.
Yep. Like Jake Allen got moved. Vitek Vanacek got moved. Like, you couldn't have taken a flyer, one of those. I don't know, but yeah. Yeah. The clear winners, obviously Vegas, Colorado, team tight business. Like, yeah, I hope Middlestat really does fit well with the Avalanche, because they've just been cycling through centers. He just feels like such a stylistic fit, and they've got guys like depth guys that just fit Colorado so well, like Yakov Trenin, and then they got Brendan Duhame, however you say his name, from the Wild. Like, that just seems such Duham, Duhame. And then Carolina just getting Jake Gensel, finally making the move for the guy is an unrestricted free agent, and probably not going to resign with your team, because again, Carolina is very analytical, very process driven. They have a number, they have something in mind, and if someone doesn't meet that, they'll have no problem moving on from you. So it was nice to see it. They didn't even give up that much. They didn't give up a guaranteed first. I'm pretty sure they only give up a first if they go to the Cup final. And like, their concern is they got to get out of the conference final to begin with. They didn't give up a high end prospect. So yeah, I would say Vegas, Colorado, Carolina, the big 3 winners. I mentioned earlier the Oilers. I wouldn't say they're losers, because I do like the fit of Adam Henrique and Sam Carrick and even Troy Stetcher there. It's just not the big game hunting that this team should have done. But looking what they gave up for Henrique and kind of comparing that to the Lindholm trade, maybe like Henrique doesn't have the name value that Lindholm has, but he pretty much, I think he has better production than what Lindholm's been putting up. So Adam Henrique fits in there. He's a playoff performer. I have no problem with that. And same with Sam Carrick, just some depth. But I feel like they could have done better. Like, they could have swung more from the fences, but I don't think it's the end of the world. You're still hoping that McDavid and Draisaitl are going to carry you, which they will.
I kind of just looked at it like we're looking at what the Canucks did right now. They bought and tried to make their team substantially better. And if anything, it's kind of stagnated a hot team. And this is an Edmonton team that is extremely streaky. Like, I don't think you mess with the chemistry in that top 6. I don't think you mess with the chemistry in that top 4 even. The reason I like their moves is because it's secondary moves that add to spots that I think come playoff time have always been their weakness, which is bottom 6 scoring and having a little bit of an edge to their game. And I think having guys like Henrique and Carrick and Perry, that adds to that bottom 6 in ways that they haven't had in previous years in the playoffs, in my opinion. And then Troy Stetcher's just depth. I don't really look into that as anything. But like, Stuart Skinner's been great since Christmas. Like,
Pickford's been all right too. Shout out the Penguins last night or the other night, I can't remember.
Yep.
Even though
Just
that makes
ride
that
that
kind of
wave,
hard to
baby.
do. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, again, yeah, they could have swung big for the fences, but also the big trade deadline move. That, like, if you win the trade deadline, that doesn't mean you're going to win the Stanley Cup.
Just
Like, at the end of the
win
day, for the yeah, for the at the end of the day for the Oilers, it's how far Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl is going to take you. It's how good, like, if Stuart Skinner can even just be average. If they can get that secondary offense from, if Zach Hyman can keep up his 50+ goal pace in the playoffs, same with the Nuge and like him being offensively productive as well. And if you get, goals from guys like Corey Perry, Ryan McLeod, like that's gravy. That's the cherry on top. And then like yeah, I could agree with that. Again, I'm kind of meh. I would say underwhelmed, but I think maybe
Okay, now.
labeling them as a loser. Yeah, we got to see, I guess.
Yeah, it is a wait and see team for the deadline. I will agree with that. I don't know. I could see those moves benefiting them. It also doesn't help that like you look at what Winnipeg did, and it really didn't cost much to get substantial pieces.
Yeah,
And, like,
that's I think that's my end. Like I get, like I remember I had Chikrin and Tersing. I get maybe making that kind of swing, but like Tyler Toffoli would have been perfect fit with the Oilers.
100%.
But he decided to go to another Canadian team for his bingo card.
Yeah, honestly, it's going to be an interesting time, to say the least.
Kind of some more. I wouldn't say loser teams, but teams I'm not quite sure about. Like Tampa Bay, I really like the Duclair pickup for them. I think they only gave up a third and like a depth defenseman for him, and he already got a goal. So it looks like he's fitting well in there. Sorry, you were saying something?
Jack Thompson's one of their higher rated prospects, from what I heard.
Oh, okay. But like I don't mind that fit, and I just wondered from Tampa Bay, they're like, okay, we couldn't get Hannafin. Yeah, that's how you know Vegas is a villain when Tampa fans are mad that they got him. But I don't know if that would have ever been a fit or like at least for an extension, like as a rental, yes, but staying there long term, I don't know because they have so much money on the books. But I wonder if that's just them being like, okay, like we've traded so many draft picks here, if we don't like we can't go all in because this is not our best team this year. Like we're gonna write it out and see what happens, kind of thing. But yeah, I like the Duclair pickup. Even Matthew just getting a 6th-round pick for Matthew Dumba or whatever it was, like you take that gamble. And same with the New York Rangers. Like I think they're fine how they are. I don't know if they need to make that big move, but again, the one I'm always going to go back to is the Tyler Toffoli one. It's like why couldn't have anyone else paid that price? But I think they're fine. They're first in their division. So, yeah, just looking at the losers like Toronto. You know who you're playing. Like it's either the Panthers or the Bruins. You're pretty much locked into that third spot. Like give Austin Matthews, give Mitch Marner, who's playing well, and same with William Nylander, all the support they can get, and Joel Edmondson, Connor Dewar as like a 4th-line center. That ain't gonna do it. I mean, you have no problem getting rid of these mid-round picks, but as soon as it's like, oh, get a good player, trade maybe a first, trade one of your good prospects, it's we can't do that. It's yeah.
Yeah, dude. It's one of those things where they don't want to fully commit after last year, but also like you saw what fully committing did. It almost got them out of the first round for the first time since the Bush administration. Like this is something that
the first Bush administration, by the way, that's how long ago that was.
Yeah, dude. Like this is a team that really can't. Like I think they put it best in the Dangle podcast today. It's like you can't look back on this team in 5 years and think, oh man, we didn't go for it the years where Matthews had 70 goals. We didn't go for it the year Marner had 105 points or something. Like at some point you just gotta bite the bullet and go for it. And like all those times the Sharks went for it, no one gave them crap for going for it because they wanted to win the Stanley Cup. You know how many times Boston's given up their first round pick and not won the cup? It doesn't matter because they're a good team that wants to win. It just shows how complacent they're being. And honestly, I blame Shanahan more than anything. This shows me that Shanahan doesn't want to really put this team over the top because he trusts his guys. Well, trusting your guys has not worked for the last 8 years. So this is my thing.
It's not even Brendan Shanahan. Like at some point, like the people above him would be like, we haven't even got past the second round yet. Like, how much longer? Like, you've been here for a decade now, and that's all you got with the talent we have. Like, we're gonna get rid of you. Like, does he not realize? I don't know, but yeah, I would be incredibly underwhelmed, incredibly disappointed if I were a Leafs fan. Like, yeah, it might not work out. Maybe they do trade their first round pick and they just flame out in the first round again. But you tried. Like, what are the guys you have? Like, what are those first round picks going to do to help you out? Like, this is a window to win now for the Leafs, and they did nothing.
Yep. Kind of pathetic, honestly.
And the kind of going back to the Oilers, yeah, they didn't make that big swing, but at least they made like additions to help out. Like Adam Henrique helps that team out, so it helps put things into perspective, I suppose.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't know. Was there any other teams that kind of intrigued you at the trade deadline?
I thought Nashville buying was an interesting tidbit. Like even if
For
you
sure.
consider that buying, but like they retained Tommy Novak, they acquired a couple pieces. Thought Dallas did some tidy business as always. Like Jim Neal just continues to put a good hockey team together, and I don't think it's enough credit because he's in Texas. But
Yeah.
that's probably where I would leave it. Honestly, maybe Anaheim not selling high on Vetrano is a little bit of a red flag, but also I don't know what the market was, so maybe there wasn't a market for him. Like we thought this a couple years ago with Dylan Strome, and there was not a market for Dylan Strome like people thought there would be.
Yeah.
No matter how many times people tell you there was 4 years later or 2 years later or whatever it is.
Yeah. Like I forgot what I was gonna say, but another team, like I wasn't expecting him to go after rentals, but I thought Detroit, like the Red Wings, would make a move for, again, maybe not a guy like Nick Schmaltz, but for a guy that could help them out this year, next year, maybe move one of their defensive prospects in the minors because they have a lot of those, and they didn't really do anything. And I get that, like you don't want to go crazy now, but they're falling out of a playoff spot. The Islanders with their 14 overtime losses, and Patrick Waller are taking over that final wild card spot, but. Yeah, that's all I can really think of. Oh, another thing, Arizona, not retaining any money, so they got like a sixth for Zucker and like a fifth and a sixth for Dumba. That was kind of funny. And then the Blues, I think that's another team where it's like there was a couple guys, like especially Pavel Buchnevich and maybe one of their defensemen like Colin Parayko. I don't know how you're gonna be able to move that, but I'm surprised there wasn't more chatter about that, but who knows? Maybe that'll be something that comes up next off season. Um, as for the Blackhawks, again, they didn't really do anything, nor did there the need to, because sounds like talking to Kyle Davidson, like they did get offers to be a third party broker, but it just didn't sound like it was like lucrative enough. Like they're getting like late, like a fifth or sixth to take back a salary for this guy, and we've seen some of the big moves that have been made in the offseason, like Eric Carlson being traded last year. Not saying they're going to trade like Seth Jones next offseason, but again, like it leaves you more flexibility. Like if you do get a good asset, or maybe use that to retain on someone, it leaves you that flexibility. So I get that. But yeah, that's pretty much it on the trade deadline. Unless you got anything else to add.
That's about it. It was a more active one this year, that's for sure. Teams definitely are getting more creative. We're seeing more triple retention, or double retention, I guess.
Yeah,
We're seeing
75%
three-way trades. Like we're seeing players get flipped and immediately put on waivers. Like we're seeing GMs get more creative, and I guess that's because the salary cap's so tight. But also, like it shouldn't have taken the salary cap getting tight for y'all to get creative. Honestly,
yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah. I got really nothing else to add. We can kind of wrap this podcast up. I thought I had something else. I'm pretty sure I'm missing something, but I think that's about it. We're in the home stretch now. Like there's only a month and a bit till the playoffs, and then once the playoffs get here, like the draft lot, I don't think we know the day for the draft lottery, but that's all going to be here in quick order. And then sooner than you know, it's going to be conference final, then Stanley Cup final, and there's going to be games on like every other day, and then it's going to be the draft off season, and boom, like it's crazy how time has been flying by, but we gotta enjoy what's happening right now, because man, just looking at the standings and how they are right now, there's gonna be some dandies in the first round. Just looking at the West, Winnipeg and Colorado in the first round, that could easily be a conference final. Dallas versus Nashville. There's Vancouver versus Vegas, and then there's Edmonton and LA again. Like, that's just crazy matchups. And then over in the East, you have Florida and the Islanders, and then the Rangers and the Lightning, a potential shot for redemption for the Rangers, and then Boston and Toronto, and then Carolina versus Philadelphia. So there's quite a few Dannies in there, and I'm looking forward to see how the rest of the season unfold. The West mostly looks set. Again, Minnesota is 6 points out with a game, and Vegas has a game in hand on them in the second wild card. But in the East, it's a little more interesting. Like, the Red Wings are fighting with the Islanders for that second wild card spot. Tampa isn't completely secure, and Washington somehow has games in hand, and it's only 3 points behind. So West is mostly set, but the East looks definitely interesting to see how that's going to fold out. And the President's Trophy, like, that's a crazy race right now. Like, there's no team just pulling ahead. There's so many good teams, so much good talent happening right now. So we got to enjoy it while it's still here. So yeah. So I don't know if you have any closing thoughts, or we can wrap this sucker up.
Yeah, that's all I got today. Should be interesting to see how the next 4 weeks go or so to wrap up the season. Like you said, there's no clear President's Trophy winner, so that should be interesting how that stacks up. I mean, Vegas is in a second wild card spot. Like, what if they don't make the playoffs after?
That would be the ultimate. Yeah.
But it's one of those things where we'll wait and see, and we'll be here to talk about it whenever it happens.
Hell yeah! And just even looking at the points, like, it's not even like McKinnon has 111, but that's not even like McDavid is on his ass with 103. Kucherov has 107. Like, oh my god, there's so much talent. I mean, goal scoring at 7th place, Austin Matthews has 54 goals, but yeah.
Yeah,
just a lot of good players, a lot of good hockey teams because of that, and a lot of good hockey. Good
season for all, that's for sure.
So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Give us a 5-star rating on your preferred podcast platform. If you're watching our beautiful, sexy faces on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button, notification bell, so you don't miss anything, and also smash that like button. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Peace out, y'all, and enjoy your Monday night.